some attackers with the other two leaders, Caruana and Nima, facing each other. Wesley so have a good opportunity to take the solo lead against Andy Woodward with the white pieces. So let's analyze the game. Woodward was playing good. He won the last two games. But okay, so have 200 more rating points. So in the paper, Wesley so was the favorite to win the game. And apart, this game is so useful if you want to learn how to play against hanging pawns. Okay, Wesley so open with knight f3, d5, d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight e3, c5. That's the most solid line maybe for black against the queen pawn. Many people are employing that, playing d5, e6, knight f6, and c5. Like that's the more solid line with black. Okay, well, it's also chose c takes d5, pawn takes, queen takes, e takes. That's the main line. Here, e4 is another main move who goes for an endgame. D takes, queen takes, knight d5. And here in this endgame, white have the base of pair, but black have an extra double pawn. But the match is same equally, more or less. So for that reason, choose Wesley so prefers the move bishop g5. I prefer bishop g5 too. I think that is more, yeah, no, more aggressive. Bishop b7, e3, knight c6. And here came Wesley so with the idea with bishop b5. With the idea of just take bishop takes c6 and play against the hanging pawns. And hanging pawns, if you didn't know what it is where you have two pawns, for example, in d5 or in c5 or in d4 and on c4, and you haven't any pawns in the adjacent files. If this pawn have no pawns on E or on C or on B, sorry, who can defend it? Pawns that are like isolated, but two isolated together, who is hanging pawns. Okay, here at the Woodward, clearly attack the bishop, asking Wesley so what you want to do with your bishop. Of course, he wants to take the knight. But yes, this move of Woodward was with the clear intention of take the bishop pair. But it's not so good to just attack the bishop. Was better was for a quiet move like Sword Castle. And in one moment, white should take the knight. Here specifically, no, here queen a4 was better, attacking the knight, a6. Of course, if you take here, bishop takes and or bishop e6 or just give the bishop and queen c7, the position is more or less equal. And if bishop h4, you have knight e4, trading many pieces. Take, trade, and the position here looks so equal. The d5 pawn is a weakness, and the d3 pawn is the other weakness, so that the position is so equal. But a6 give white a small advantage because okay, black have won the bishop pair, but these hanging pawns are going to suffer so much, and specifically this bad white bishop. And now white is going to play, yes, white is going to focus his game to attack the hanging pawns. Okay, now 95 for short castle was slightly better move, so was with 24 fine. And here was better to play bishop d7, followed by c5, of course. 95 is going to be played, attacking the bishop, because if not, just c5 is coming. So for that reason, Wesley should attack the bishop, should have attacked the bishop, e6. And here, if you goes back, just queen c7, attacking the knight. And if bishop f6, just take and give back the knight with a more or less equal position. So black should have give back the bishop pair to be more equal. Instead of that, he tries to maintain the bishop pair, but the bishop on b7, let's see that is also bad place, of course. Okay, he doesn't put the bishop on b7 because now the knight can take it. But the bishop on b7 is a very bad piece, in my opinion. Okay, so goes Sword Castle, and now 94. Now Wesley so start his plan of attack the hanging pawns, queen d7 defending. And here, bishop h4 or rook f1 are better moves. The problem of the Wesley so move with queen c2 is that he avoid Woodward to play c5. And now we reach a real position of hanging pawns. That's a real hanging pawn position when both pawns are on c5 and on d5, and without any pawns on the e or on the b files. So that's the real hanging pawns. So that's the position that we are going to focus in. Now, after c5, if red could move, the position is it's equal. Knight f5, attacking the bishop, black leaves. Of course, in the past we see that black should give the like the square bishop, but the dark square bishop it's more important than the other bishop. So this bishop is so important to maintain. A part is defending the f6 knight, and now Galiso games to attack the hanging just with knight a4. Now white is attacking with two pieces c5, and black is defending with zero, so it can look like white is going to take the pawn. And why black didn't play c4? The huge problem of this move is that now the d4 square is so weak and the d5 pawn is going to be so weak. Because with the pawn here, in one moment you can play d4 and with the help of the c pawn. But now if you play c4, now the d4 square is going to be so weak and the d5 pawn specifically is going to be so weak. So instead of position, black white is going to double rooks on the d file, and your bishop is closed forever. If in one moment white can take, or if not, can go with a knight to f4, for example, like this. Or just simply knight c5, take the bishop, and then double rooks on the d file to attack the pawn. So that's why black cannot play c4. Instead of that, he played good move, knight d4. He's trading pieces and defending the c5 pawn at the same time that he attacked the knight f5. Of course, very completely move. Bishop here, and here was better to take with the f8 rook. And let's see why. Because okay, after f8, white have two responses, and Andy Woodward take with the rook. Here white have two responses too. But okay, let's analyze rook. If rook takes a rook f8. Here, for example, if white plays f3, just take, and queen g5, and here the position with the rook on d8 was equal. And if knight g3, just before, knight c5, d3, knight takes, and the key is that after d takes e2, the rook on f8 is not hanging. The problem is that with the line that he played in the game, rook a d1, knight g3, d4 good move, knight c5, here you cannot play d3, because after knight d7, d takes e2, the f8 rook is hanging, so here white can take on f8. For that reason, it's better to play rook f8. So for that reason, black cannot play d3. He should take here, queen takes, and here comes the first important mistake of the game. One of the yes, maybe the decisive mistake of the game was d3. This move here simply doesn't work. Yes, that simply doesn't work. Okay, could be logical because you're advancing so much a pawn, and okay, a pawn on d2 used to be annoying, of course. But it's not enough to make the draw. Here, black should have taken on e3, open queen takes, and just rook e8. And of course, white have a pawn up, but this bishop is so strong, and black have the control of the two open files. So this is going to be enough to compensate the pawn. The problem in d3 is that now black is closing the center, and he cannot use so much the advantage of have the both huge pieces in the d5. Okay, rook a d1, and here again, Wesley saw failed placing a rook on d1. Was better again to place the f rook on d1, but this about a concrete line. So at the end of the line, the a2 pawn was defended. For example, the main line here was rook c8, good move, queen f5, rook fd8, queen d7, rook d7, knight f5, knight c4, sorry, rook c4, knight d4, rook b2, rook b3, and here the a2 pawn is defended. But what happened with the other rook on d1, rook c8, queen f8, queen d8, rook d8, takes, knight f5, rook c2, knight d4, rook b3, here the a2 pawn is hanging. So that's why it was better to place the rook on the f1 rook on d1. Of course, it was not so easy to understand it again. But okay, that one looks more natural the f1 rook. But okay, it's so difficult sometimes to choose which rook plays on the square. And sometimes the players didn't want to think so much about that because it used to be more or less similar to place one rook over the other. So for that reason, some players didn't want to spend many times selecting which rook they are going to place on the square when it looks similar. Okay, rook a1, and here rook instead of play rook c8, good move, he played d2, queen c3, and now the last chance for black to create counterplay was queen d3. If queen takes, rook takes, and now black is coming with rook c8, rook c2, and the position is equal. And if f3, who is the best move? Just take, and e4. And okay, but white is still with the advantage here, of course. f3 for a typical maneuver to limit the bishop. Instead of that, he made the loss of tempo of rook f8, and the problem is that after f3, he finally realized that he should play queen d3, but here he have not enough tempo to make all that he wants. Queen takes, and just rook f2, taking a pawn, because in this position, with the pawn on f2, rook f2 is not possible. But here, white have an extra tempo to play rook f2, and just trade the a3 pawn for the d2 pawn with a just winning position. Just take, 6, king f2, now he trades one pair of rooks, and now this thing was completely winning. He 94, first he start to take a special advantage on the queen side. Now he take all the space in the queen side, and now he goes to take more space in the king side, a part of fixing black pawns in late squares. Take, and white pawns in dark squares, of course, who cannot be attacked by the bishop. Rook c7, rook c2, just trading rooks, and now this hanging was winning. e5, placing all the pawns in dark squares. And now Wesley Shaw gives the b5 pawn, but just to take the h5 to create a pass pawn. Here b5 will move, attracting the bishop to b5. And here knight f5, knight d3, and black cannot defend the h5 pawn. And now he resigned because after knight d4 the bishop is blocked and h6, h7 is coming with winning the game. So very good game of Wesley Shaw. I'm going to change the result. Who made his job and won the game, having 5 pawn of 7. The other game between the other two leaders, Hans Niemann and Caruana, are going to be, of course, so important in the standing. So let's see the game that I analyzed. So nothing too more. Bye bye, motherfuckers.